get on to the edits and how I make this interesting. So let's just hear how the bass changes from the B part to the drop switch. There's still one more bass sound to show, actually two more bass sounds to show, besides the one that I've just showed you before, and still also to show how the bus noise send track here is shaping some of the sounds. So let's just play this section. I will remove the sidechain. So a new sound is coming. Okay, cool. So basically, the idea that I use for my bass edits and to make them interesting is, so if I'm starting with some type of bass sounds, I have to follow that logic. The logic from the first bass sounds that you hear in the track is this main wonky bass, sounds like a very short foghorn, and the obvious main sub rolling bass, which is carrying everything. And at the end of every 4 bars, there's a rolling sub, like a type jungle sub that hits and goes down in pitch. So there's everything here. So there's that main wonk, which is this. There's the sub rolling, and there's that other sub that shows up. I also have the filler, as I mentioned earlier, this sound that's coming down, which is one of the main sounds on the B part here, which is just introducing you to the switch. So basically the logic that I try to use for my bass edits is that. So I'm using a wonky sound, and I want to progress from that. So what I did to make it interesting is I just, from that to this, I just increased the amount of distortion so it becomes very wobbly and weird, but it works in context. So it's all about context at the end of the day, because probably this sounds like a very weird sound, but in context it works. The rolling sub, I'm increasing the distortion more and more and more. I'm also adding it a white noise top. You can see it's not here, so it just keeps things interesting. And then I have this one coming down and down and down and down, and opening the reverb and opening the filter and everything, so it just becomes bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, just to create more tension. And then on the switch, here on the switch, I don't have that wonky sound anymore. I wanted to have something that would make the difference. So I picked up an 808 sample, and I followed the same logic. So basically what I did, let me just deactivate that so I can play the 808. So it's just a little bit of a distorted 808 sample, and I just destroyed it a little bit. Compression, then tone shaping EQ, because after that I'm distorting it and doing this type of EQ, so you're literally choosing what frequencies you want to focus around on the distortion. Okay, so that's also a cool thing to do, automate these types of frequencies. Then I'm using Dirt. If you've seen my skank bass deconstruction tutorial, that's up on Sofa Sound Bristol YouTube, I recommend to see that as well. I'm using Dirt as well. At the time I was using Dirt a lot, because it is very fun to destroy 808s with it. That's what I'm doing here. And then I'm using a little bit of short reverb. just to give it a little bit of depth, and then a bigger one as well, just to help it sit better in the mix. So it kind of sounds like the honky thing here, but not really. But the idea is the same, is a strong honky bass hitting on the kick, but the tones is different. So it is a nice bass edit. It pays respect to what played before. And then I also have this, which is basically that that sound here that's been being teased since the build up, but now it's actually playing without being filtered. So it's playing at the first kick of every bar, and then it's always going down a little bit. And then I also introduced this new sound. Okay. The logic is the same. I'm using FM again with a little bit of an LFO just to modulate the FM amount and the level. And then I'm doing a little bit of distortion and hyperdimension and a little bit of compression as well, just like on the other basses. So the logic is the same. It is an FM sound just like the other ones, with distortion and hyperdimension and all of that. The only difference is that this one oscillates and is very, very thinner, so it just fills those gaps there. And also there's a notch going down throughout the whole 16, so it sounds different every time it plays. Pro Q3 here is just doing, again, a cut. I don't really trust EQ8 to do those cuts for me, so when I find that it's not doing it, I'll just do it with a Pro Q. And then I'm boosting the highs on this bass because it really needed them. As for the rolling sub, if you look at the notes here, you can see that on the rolling jungly sub, it's always playing the same note at the same time. So here is the switch. Here's the edit. Sometimes you don't even need to swap the sound. You just need to swap the notes. So that's basically what I'm doing, and I'm also adding distortion. So I'm automating a distortion layer. So let me play you just the normal version, the clean version. Since this is a detuned sub, a detuned sound, sorry, every time I play a note, the higher it is, the faster it oscillates. Cool. I'm using a rack here so that I can have a clean version of the sound and a distortion one. So I'll play you the distorted version. This is what adds that extra fuzz to the sound. So basically it's an erosion before some compression with distortion. So it compresses and saturates the sound with that white noise. So it creates a nice little fuzz in the middle. Loads of saturation with the saturator on soft sine. Camel fat. And density. With just a little bit of distortion. I like to use different stages of different types of distortion for this type of sounds. Just really helps you shape the tone to a specific and different sound. Rather than just using one distortion unit and really pushing it. There's nothing wrong with that. I just prefer to use small little bits of distortion all adding up to a different tone that probably a single plugin will not be able to do. So it just helps you have a different character to your sound. So there's that. And then I don't use it. So it's just a higher note being pitched down, which hasn't happened in the past, but the sound is close to it. So it's not that big of a surprise. It is a surprise, which is good in music, but it's not that big of one. So our ears can actually think, oh, this is a pleasant surprise. And then there we go again. And then for the breakdown, I'm just letting that 808 play for a little bit longer. And just keeping the sub. So there's that for the bass edits. As for the sends, I'm sending some of the basses to a bus noise, which creates a little hissy sound. Basically what I'm doing is I'm using a tape emulation plugin, which is the tape dust here. Any analog emulation plugin or tape emulation plugin that will generate noise, most of them do. They have a little noise function. Most of them will work for this. So basically what I'm doing is I'm generating noise on this bus, and then I'm increasing that noise with another tape saturation plugin that also generates noise. So there's a big amount of noise going on here. And then I'm using a noise gate. I like this one, it's by Reason. And basically it gates out the noise, so you cannot actually hear the noise that's being made. And then I'm distorting that noise a lot with densities, overdrives, and high passing it. So when I send the bass there, the bass is gonna play with that noise. It's gonna get distorted with that noise and then high passed just so I can hear the distorted noise. That's what's happening. And then I'm also sidechaining this to the kick, snare, and to the actual bass, so it creates a little bit of a sucking effect, like the noise is being sucked by the bass. Yeah, so a lot of compressors here for sidechain and a saturator, because I thought that this would clip normally, but it wasn't, so it's not really doing anything. Okay, cool. Moving on.